Welcome to the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Together we explore the vast landscapes of life, delving into the rich soil of experiences, sowing the seeds of curiosity, and harvesting the profound wisdom that each episode unfolds. Hi, this is Mike, your host for Harvesting Wisdom. I'm here at Stanford University at the farm. I don't know what you call it.
It's called the O'Donoghue Family Stanford Educational Farm.
Okay, I won't repeat that. And who are you?
I'm Patrick Archie. I'm the director of farm.
You're the director here. So, you said how long have you been?
I've been at Stanford for just about 13 years.
And the O'Donohues are active now, or this was something that they bequeathed 100 years ago?
No, this is all pretty new. The O'Donohues are a family that's connected to Stanford in many ways. That they also have a farm. They live back in Bioti for Snow Hill Organic Farm. It's just outside of the city, about an hour. Farm. But they had heard this farm was a dream with students going back about 30 years. The students wanted to have a farm. They called Stanford the farm, but there used to be many years ago lots of farms on this very large campus.
Okay.
But there hadn't been an educational farm, so the students began advocating to have a farm on the campus. And then Pam Matson, who's our former dean, we were the School of Earth, Energy, and Environmental Sciences. We're now the Dorr School of Sustainability. Pam said, the students are right, and we're going to make this happen. So I was at Santa Clara University. I'd done a lot of gardens. But they hired me to come 13 years ago to figure out where we could do this on the campus.
I got a degree from ASU, a master's degree, but then I worked for Dames and Moores, an international planning company, for a short period of time, and then went back into landscaping, which I had done, put myself through school.
Yeah.
Been doing that for the last 35 years or so, but then we did the community garden downtown for a while, and that evolved into our nonprofit. So now we're doing STEAM education. So we've taken Arizona standards and tied them into curriculum for preschool through senior level in high school. And weird as it is, Arizona is one of 4 states that are slightly different than national standards, but we are taking our stuff and turning it to national standard, and then we'll do the last 3 states that aren't. But so it's a curriculum that can be used in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, that's great.
And we're involved with the climate project, so we're going to tailor some of our curriculum. Mostly it's kind of regenerative farming concepts, not necessarily regenerative, but sustainable ideas. And I have a soil manufacturing, organic company, so we do composting of everything and then use a lot of minerals, and we tailor make soils for what you're growing, or droughts. We have drought soils, interior soils.
Okay. So like container soils, container growing?
No, we're large scale. So I sell
so amendments.
4,500 acres at a whack, or that kind of thing.
Wow, so you're doing large amendments.
On Amazon. And we'll have our full product line probably by the end of the year on Amazon, which is different. But then we sell middle market stuff. But the ideas are the same concepts, and I love, before it was environmental design, and it was, the different slogans, and everything kind of comes back. We talked holistic problem solving back then, and now we're back to that, and that's circular ideas. And now it's sustainability is the new buzzword, but it's the same ideas. It's just now it's, I think, finally evolving as we see the planet in trouble.
Yes,
part of what we do. So how do you connect with the school? So you have the School of Sustainability, but that doesn't mean that everybody works here at your farm that's in that school.
Oh, no, it's a very large school. No, we're a small part of the school. But this little piece of it is really engaged with, specifically with agriculture and food systems, and with getting students some hands-on experience, so they study theory of agriculture, and they get to learn some skills in this space, and then connect with a whole bunch of community partners. So we have lots of students that engage in different ways. Like, for instance, This back of the barn here has been used a lot by engineering students. There's some various programs in engineering that are interested in what we used to call appropriate technology, but low cost technology that's sustainable, that is affordable and accessible.
They could be used in agriculture
and all over the world. Yeah,
the base economy for every planet and every culture ever since humans have been around.
Right.
So it's a big. So there's obviously engineering. There's a big need for that.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of students that have worked on projects. Like, for instance, there was a group of seniors that were in mechanical engineering that for many years were working on with partners in India on both cooling and dehydrating crops in order to be able to get them to market, and figuring out real low-cost ways of doing that. And so for our conception of agroecology, like, that's something that we love to support, where you've got technology that's actually affordable and accessible.
Yeah, so we're in, weird as it is, not just schools in Arizona, which we want to expand to any state that wants to do it, but we're in Africa. So we lost a bid for a grant with USAID in Malawi, but now we're in Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And we're involved with a very large conservatory that's rewilding, and they're also trying to save the bush by helping bush people learn some of these agriculture practices that are very adaptable. I guess they're kind of pre-industrial practices in the way I would look at it, but they're alternatives to industrial farming because they can't afford the equipment or the inputs, the chemicals.
And there's any number of problems that are imposing an outside system.
Yeah, so we do a lot of that agribusiness type thing at that model that you're talking. We just put in a big solar dryer. I'll show you a picture of that. Because when you crop out, you have like bangles coming out your ears, right? And now you have the ability to dry it, store it, and that kind of thing. Because electricity is not a for sure thing over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to have some of these systems that are more basic.
Right. Yeah, that's these students were, I think, working on similar ideas with solar dehydrators to be able to dry food.
We got to get some of them to come out. Through the conservatory, it's the one piece is 50,000 acres, the other two are 25 that are contiguous to this.
Wow.
And they can go on game drives and safari type stuff while they're there, but they could work the farms or work in the schools. And that's what we're trying to do, is get more students. Because we've kind of realized that people, by the time they're my age, we've got our ideas kind of fixed, right? And so we're trying to work with younger people to show them, hey, there are alternatives, or at least make your own mind up.
Yeah.
Show you all the different alternatives to what it is and that kind of thing. So
yeah, that's cool.
How do you guys tie this into nutrition at all?
We do. We work a lot. All of our food that we grow and on this farm goes into the campus food system. We don't compete with local farms. So what that means is we get to work with a lot of the chefs. There's all these amazing chefs on campus. Stanford is kind of unique, I think, in some ways, in that they actually run their own food system. Many universities contract with providers to come in and do the food. And Stanford has a really fantastic organization called Residential and Dining Enterprises that does housing and also food. And so we work with the chefs in R&DE, and that's been great. And so
you were at Santa Clara. I mean, if I remember right, the cafeteria at Santa Clara was all hydroponic. Was it Santa
Not
Clara?
when I was there. Well, not the time when I was there. They had a contract with Bon Appetit, which is one of these companies that often contracts with universities, and there was no hydroponics. I did build a half-acre garden for that school before I came here, and that thing is going strong. That's called the Forge, and they have all kinds of educational programs they layer onto that.
Yeah. So how many acres do you deal with here? You don't need lots of acres. Right?
You don't. For educational purposes, you don't. We've got about 5.5 acres all to this whole parcel, and I can show y'all. I mean, whatever y'all would like to see.
So we're in another area here. What's behind us?
So these are our primary crops out that we're looking at here.
And you're windrowing.
We have orchards. We've got several orchards on the edges of the farm. So there's about 20 different kinds of figs that you can see off in that direction.
Sure.
You can't see, but on the other side of those big oak trees, there's a mixed
fruit orchard, both palm and stone fruit.
Okay.
There's about 40 different kinds of citrus on that edge of the farm.
And then these are beds, and mostly annuals, or are you doing
Yeah,
perennials?
this is there are some perennials out here, but mostly annuals.
Okay.
We've got it set up, and we can walk out there and look at the beds. But we use a spader to do our tillage.
Okay.
And so we have our little tractors in the shop right now, but we've got a tractor with a PTO that can run the spader, and it makes a 3-foot bed.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so this whole
Rather than
system is
plowing it or whatever. But
yeah. So it's essentially a mechanized market garden. And so each of these beds, rather than having blocks, there's some areas where we do have blocks, like for instance that corn
Right.
is a milpa.
section that-
Yeah. So that's
just broadcast, or is it in rows?
no,
or-
it's in rows. It's sown with corn and beans and squash.
Now, how about the varietal? Is it a BT corn, or is it?
No, this is a certified organic farm.
Okay.
And
So it
that
is
corn is
certified.
actually a Mandan corn. That's an indigenous variety of corn. The Mandan people still live in what we now call the Dakotas. And this
Okay.
is a traditional Mandan variety.
Are you doing any intercropping, like the
Yeah.
Three Sisters and things like that?
Yeah, that's got beans and squash
Oh,
and
cool.
with
Yeah.
it.
We've
Now-
done that in Africa with some pretty good success. We didn't get the beans to completely grow all the way to the top, but by intercropping, we got a yield of squash and of corn in second year of drought.
Yeah.
So the majority of that southern Africa, if it doesn't rain, which it hasn't, they don't eat.
Yeah.
And so we actually have a 3-acre piece that is completely organic with amendments that from there.
Uh-huh.
And we actually have grown stuff, whereas the neighbors have, knee-high corn to here and dead, and they tried to put fertilizers on it, and it was like adding more burn to the plant. But, so
Yeah, the milpa is an ingenious system. I mean, it's thousands of years old. This
yeah.
is a traditional agroecological system that's spread from what's now Mexico all the way
All
up
over,
North
yeah.
America and all the way down through South
Yeah.
America.
Over there, it's mostly maize anyway. It's not like what we'd consider corn. But
This is pear and apple
you
and
make your own foliars?
we had been purchasing stuff, and so this one is it's a liquid organic certified fertilizer. In this
Kind of a
case,
potassium-based a little more?
it's more organic matter actually. It's more like I think it's got algae in it, and I can't remember all the different ingredients. But it's one of these
So it's a little
liquid.
microbiome.
Yeah, it's a liquid fertilizer. It's the only case we use a little bit of that stuff sometimes with our starts if we need to, if they look like they could use a little bit of fertility. But with the citrus, because the citrus roots are relatively shallow, and the grasses can be problematic, and we don't necessarily always have the
nitrogen
people
and
to
everything. Sure.
weed, So in that case, we have a setup there where we can siphon liquid organic fertilizer and periodically feed the citrus with
So
that.
you're drenching. or you're
Actually,
spraying.
we're actually, I wouldn't even call it a drench, but it's going through the drip irrigation.
Okay, so
it's
that's
in the drip.
That'd be a drench more than a spray.
Not a
So
spray, that's correct.
Are you growing any grapes at all?
Just a few
Thompson,
plants, not
Okay.
on any scale. Hopefully the tractor comes back.
Have you tried
Next
any
week.
permaculture? So have you tried just maybe laying this down and seeding on top of it at all?
We have done some minimal tillage or no-till. We've done a little bit, but we find with additions of organic matter and cover crops, we've been able to do
everything.
Yeah. When we don't till, we have our biggest challenge here are gophers and ground squirrels. We have very little insect pests because of the diversity that you see. We have just
Sure.
huge numbers of
Yeah.
beneficial
and the
insects.
density too will keep the weed pressure down and the insects.
But we always have weeds. But yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, you can look at these beds. The weeds are present, but they're not at this stage in the crop's life cycle. They're not affecting at all. In fact, they're helping to cover the soil. So we with no-till we have a bunch of friends that are doing no-till in
minimal
California, but it's challenging when you don't have the rains that they've got in the east.
Sure.
The yields, it's hard to keep your yields up with. My experience with no-tillage
Right.
in these systems is that the yields tend to be lower.
Well, it depends. Now, are you mostly drip here? Do you do
Entirely
any-
drip.
It's entirely drip.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you using a drip tape or just
We use a midder line. I'll show you. This is the stuff here. Yeah. We started out with with T-tape, which is a very thin film that similarly has laser cut holes for the irrigation. Yeah, but we that's
They don't last long.
they don't last long. This stuff we went ahead and invested. This stuff will last. I mean, I've had this stuff last 20 years.
Well, we worked with some big farmers that also do organic, and one of our friends, Scotty, was one of the head growers at Del Monte, and he came, I don't know how he did it, but he buried the drip tape, and he kept it almost 20 years, which is like crazy to me.
I've done it. I've used this stuff.
But he keeps it in the ground, and then he figures out a way to not tear it up when he's doing...
Yeah.
That's the hard part, is when you're doing mechanical stuff.
There's a bunch of folks in the Central Valley doing that. We don't have any, they call it subterranean drip.
Right, yeah.
And we don't have any of the subterranean drip here. I actually I'd like to turn this whole block subterranean. We haven't done it, but this stuff, we call it a emitter line. I've had these lines last 20 years.
Yeah, it's easier to see it.
It's easier to fix.
Phoenix, the problem is that would burn out too, but so now, have you tried growing with plastic? Like a black plastic, you paint it white in the summer for activity.
You can buy white plastic, like the berry growers do that in Southern California. I personally don't like all the plastic. We have used it.
Good for weed pressure, though.
It's good. It's good. It helps to contain moisture, but it's another waste product. It's it would be great. Every time I have I have a certain number of students that are in product design, and I'm always asking them for alternatives for plastics.
Maybe some of the new plastics, the bioplastic. Well, bioplastic was the first plastic, and now it's coming back.
Right.
But a lot of bioplastics aren't biodegradable, which is crazy. But
it is crazy. Yeah, we've got to stop making stuff that's not biodegradable, basically.
So we haven't. But the cool thing of that is if you always have like a patch somewhere. You can show me, but you're gonna have a patch you just can't get the weeds to ever go away, nut grass or whatever.
We have, probably the biggest challenge that we've got is bindweed. There's none right here, but there are some spots.
It's always there until you
stay on. Oh, I can show you. I know where it's at. We're trying to keep it at bay, but that's our biggest challenge as far as the weeds go.
Well, the thing is like I used to have an office with my landscape company down in San Marcos and then Temecula.
Yeah.
And I always used to say, we don't have to be much of a landscaper in California because everything grows so good. Same thing with farming, right? It's like, but. So, I mean, it just looks beautiful.
So this one I'm hoping to put in pavers and have like a long farm-to-table dinner space. So I haven't pulled that off yet. But I set these trees far enough apart that we could farm between the trees. And so if you go throughout the rest of the orchards, not the citrus orchard, but the others, you'll find beds with crops growing between the trees. And that gives us an interesting microclimate. And I think that one could be cool in Arizona if you have...
Yeah, it helps you cool.
Absolutely.
And shade. And
so we have a lot of crops that, like for instance, I have a student, actually a PhD student who just finished, Sammy Chin, who worked with the Cherokee Nation in Appalachia in North Carolina, and worked with a traditional green that they grow and harvest called Sochin. And so she and I planted 2 rows of Sochin down at the far end in the orchard down there because it was the closest thing I could get to Appalachia on this farm because it was in the shade of the stone fruit trees.
But that's one of the new ideas of climate smart agriculture too, is that agroforestry.
Yeah.
Where they're now starting to, for a long time when they're growing wood for wood uses, they would have a monoculture and they would get rid of a lot of other. Now they're realizing that they can actually have a bigger yield by doing the same kind of intercropping.
Either with crops or animals.
And they're doing it with grasses.
Yeah.
So trees and grasses, which they didn't think would work. They used to work.
Yeah. Oh, it works
until
great.
150 years ago. Now they're finding out
they're learning. Well, this is the system we use for our trees. And this you were asking about mulch. Yeah, so what we do is we lay on a very thick mulch, and then we irrigate not very frequently. You can go up in the hills around here. This will hold the moisture great.
Now, the mulch itself is coming from campus?
Yeah, it's all basically tree waste that would have to be disposed of. I mean, this campus is so large that there's plenty of places to spread it.
Right.
But in most cities, folks are having to
So this is a
haul it away.
combination, though, of not just shredded trees and plants, This looks like you got leaves too. So is there a leaf collection that they do on campus?
They do. I mean, I don't know. I think they probably do. I don't know where that comes. This pretty much comes from the trees, and they'll be yeah, like this. You can tell this was oak. No, this was wood chips that were generated when they were
the leaf.
Yeah, they don't. It's not. You know, it's just raw coming in here,
Right.
and so we get a lot of wood chips from the campus, and this is what's enabled us to kind of grow the organic matter in these beds. What we do in the fall is we come in and sow bell beans, which looks just like a fava bean, but the seed is still big but smaller than a fava bean, and so it's a lot cheaper. But it's got a rigorous enough root system that we can pull a hoe through here, drop some bell beans, and it'll actually find its way down and grow. So we'll grow cover crops in these trees during the winter time, knock them down. This is actually the residue from the bell bean from last year. Knock it down and then come back in and cover it with wood chips. And that's enabled us to grow these trees with very little irrigation. Up in the mountains around here, back that way, can't see it at this moment, but the Santa Cruz Mountains are that way, and you'll find old homestead sites. You'll see persimmon trees. The fruit ripens in the fall. It's orange and beautiful, looks like ornaments, but you know, you find these trees that nobody watered or sprayed or pruned.
Alive, right?
Oh yeah, they're producing like crazy.
Concept of regenerative, right? It's, you're just biomimicry trying to get stuff to go. What do you got going here?
This one was well, in this area where we've got this outdoor kitchen, this is a trap, not for mosquitoes, for the yellow jackets.
Oh, okay.
And it's a little sad because they're great biocontrol. The yellow jackets will patrol your crops and
Sure.
control pests, but at a certain, you know, in the summertime, they get really interested in meat, and people's pick food,
Or somebody brings a Coke.
any of those kinds of
Sure,
things, and then
right,
it becomes a little bit of a hazard for us. So we do a little bit of trapping of those. That's just like a simple trap, but that's one of those ones that most of the year they're really beneficial. Times a year they become aggressive and problematic for the events. So these plants were planted by the tribal members 2 years ago.
Concrete pieces as part of
Yeah, this is from concrete from the campus.
recycled.
Yeah, this is these are native grasses. This is what was in California before the Europeans came, were deep-rooted native grasses. There's bulbs and there's native.
Different place this must have looked.
Oh yeah, it would be amazing to have seen.
Was it at?
Yeah, this is there's several different kinds of bulbs in here that people would roast, and then there's native flowers that you can also gather the seed from. But the idea with this one, and I think next year is we'll burn it, have a cultural burn here with the tribe.
It's part of their.
That's how they traditionally manage this landscape, was with fire. And so in this case, the irrigation will pull out, but this is totally resistant to fire, these metal and concrete.
Yeah.
And we have some, you can see them stepping up, those logs there, those are going to go in here as benches. So there'll be some benches, and then we want to build a little traditional structure.
Shade structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do that a lot in. What's kind of weird is we're in very whereas the it's very rural, have huts, but in the little city area, like in Bulawayo, we went to a school and they made one to show with the kids what it looks like, and I'm like, what do you mean what it looks like? It's everywhere. You can just go out of town, but transportation is so severed over there and they're disconnected from their roots too, so that they create what they call cultural huts to show people what it used to look like.
Yeah.
I think they're still functional huts.
Yeah.
You can just make them because they're usable.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to do here. I've got to get permission from the campus. Anytime we build anything up, there's all sorts of permits and
in somebody's head.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we'll be able to have that kind of shade structure here. But this is the grassland foods to the south. These are all medicinal plants.
Okay.
To the west, those are native berries. To the north there, and then this one we call Muwekma Tech, which is like plants that were used to make things with. So actually there were some of the boys that planted the Muwekma food and medicine forest that I'll show you back in the northwest corner of the farm. They were just harvesting, this is elderberry, and they were harvesting to make flutes and to make clapper sticks, which is a traditional instrument used ceremonially. So really great to have their families out here. And this was inspired by Life Lab. Their garden at the farm at Santa Cruz is probably at least twice this big, maybe at least twice this big. and I've been friends with them for a long time, but they have developed a lot of great curricula that might be useful for some of your programs.
Great at sharing per se, but
Well, they sell their curricula to help fund the nonprofit.
Right.
But I've used their materials for years, and they're excellent.
Yeah.
So I like those. They were the inspiration for this part of the farm, which was to have a garden that's for teachers that want to learn, about gardening, to have school gardens for folks that are interested in community gardens and people interested in growing in their backyards.
Right.
So this is like the last big thing to build on the farm, is this garden space.
Finish this up. Is this, you call it Malacca, was the native?
Oh,
tribe?
Muwekma Ohlone. Yeah, that's the tribe whose land Stanford is on.
Okay.
And we work with them.
And what is this growing right here?
So this is a big group of perennials that the Muwekma, that their ancestors, were connected to for thousands and thousands of years, both for food and for medicine and fiber and other products. And so the idea in working with the tribe is they're in a fight for recognition, for federal recognition, and have been for decades. And so our idea is to work with the tribe to help raise the profile by seeding Muwekma gardens all over the Bay Area. Right. And so these are plants, these are trees and larger shrubs that we couldn't fit in the garden space where we planted the Muwekma food and medicine.
So how big do these get? These good size?
I mean, so there's bay tree back here, there's a black oak. Those will be,
so
40, 60, 80 feet.
Well,
and then, 20, 15, So these plants are really small right now, but they will fill in and I think create a really interesting nook back here.
And I love the idea of perennials.
Oh, man.
Perennials are really a big part of the answer. And
yeah.
As you weave your garden, as your garden continues to change and stuff, the addition to some of those plants like this as it grows and you see it working is pretty amazing. So you've been here 9 years. What are you most proud of? You started pretty much from scratch.
Yeah.
You built the program. Besides, any kind of fighting you do with the university to get a nickel or whatever.
Oh, they've been great. They've been great. Yeah. And actually it's been alums, the O'Donohue family, the Terry Huffington and her family. There's been a group of families, alumni family, that have really made it possible.
Great.
And it was the students that dreamed of the farm. So it's been fun to help realize that vision.
It really came from.
Yeah, I have an amazing team, growing a team, as you know, the people are what really make things work. And
yeah.
So Will Chen, Allison Bauer, Jessica Gonzalez Chu, our team has been phenomenal. The students, we get just an incredible group of students that come and work with us on the farm and then engage with this place in so many different ways. They're so creative and they come up with all kinds of interesting ideas and programs that we get to host on the farm. Yeah, cool. So I love the community.
You can do, right? And
yeah, that's been huge.
It's the #1 industry worldwide. It's #1 in any country. And the applications are immense, whether you're using, new technologies for equipment through engineering or through programming or whatever. The idea of farming, sometimes we think of it not being sophisticated, but we can go back to our grassroots, the things that have always worked on the planet, but we can also use today's science to see what we can do to heal the earth, right? So what do you see now going forward with the garden? You going to get 20 more acres someplace, or is that too much? I mean, this is a perfect.
I think it's a great scale for what we do.
Right.
I think this is a great scale. We've talked with folks about, the campus is quite large, and we've talked about partnering with other organizations to perhaps do some different practices. But I think our scale here is really good for what we do. For us right now, it's really about this partnership that we have with the Muwekma Ohlone Tribe is really wonderful. I think it's a great way for Stanford to connect with the community. Yeah, and I think it's meaningful that we can do things that are actually real and tangible. Having this was a partnership this last I guess this was 2 weeks ago we planted this. And it was a camp out for youth in the Muwekma Ohlone Tribe that was hosted up at Jasper Ridge, which is a biological preserve on campus who we partner with a lot. And so that was fun to have the kids camped up at Jasper Ridge, and then on Monday they came over here. A couple of our chefs, Terry and Adrian, made pizzas. They make really good pizzas in the oven that you saw. And then the kids, it was kids and their families out here planting all these plants, and so cool that we can, use our space to connect with the community. And then for our students too, to then make that bridge out into the community. So we work with a lot of other urban farm and garden organizations throughout the Bay Area, especially in the South Bay, but but stretching up into San Francisco and over into the East Bay as well.
You can help and show them things that they don't know, but they can also contribute to what you're doing.
For us, they absolutely do. I mean, one of the things they do is they provide spaces like opportunities for our students to have internships, and our students learn so much when they take what they learn on this farm and then connect into the real world. That just takes their learning to the next level. And then we're able to convene folks on our farm. Like, we've got a great space to gather people, so that's been another thing we've been able to do a little bit of that I'd like to grow. So it's really, I think, our next phase. We've just about built the farm out, but we're trying to dial in our systems and make them, as agroecological as we can.
You doing any microgreens at all?
We've played with all kinds of things in the past, but again, it's like a system, setting up that system and running it.
Right.
So with things like microgreens, things of that nature, it's usually student driven. For us, what I'm really interested in is creating as many opportunities for people to connect with each other and with the land at this space. That's the advantage that we've got. That's the magic.
That's the heart.
Yeah, and then it's the thing where it really, I think the benefits really come together. And then for us also to then reach out and be connected to our community.
Sure.
That's kind of what I see for our next steps, the next decade, as we kind of come into our 10th year.
Urban farming and, just in schools in general, or we do shelters and we've done the community gardens and now we're in Africa doing stuff. And I came to a realization that it comes down to community.
It absolutely does.
Right?
That's right. Yeah.
Because if the community's not involved, then what are you doing it for to begin with?
Yeah.
And it's a great way for the community to learn how much power they have if they work together and they communicate, and that's part of our platform. So it's good to see it pretty much at any scale, that if it's going to be successful, and there's a lot of garden programs that are not, but it's kind of cool to see. So anyway, it's a pleasure.
Great to meet you as well. Yeah, my pleasure too.
Dr. Patrick Archie, Stanford University, and love to have more connection with what we're doing.
Oh yeah,
you
keep us
tell
posted.
us what you see or whatever, and love to have some of your students maybe, or you come over to Africa and see that other side of the planet. And
when you've got opportunities, especially for the students, let me know. Because we always love to get our students out. They're so motivated and they love to get out into the world.
Some of the stuff over there is just so different than here, but the rewilding concept is just an amazing thing, because you're trying to save a part of the planet. The two parts of the planet that are under much duress are the Amazon and it's Africa, right? And so preserving that and working, because you can't just create these rules and laws. You have to make it work for the community.
That is the key. Yeah,
economic viable, but do appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
Great.
Yeah.
The weather, of course, is perfect.
Yeah, we didn't get too burnt today.
All right. Thank you for joining the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Click subscribe and like for ongoing insightful conversations. Explore our webpage for show notes and additional resources. Visit our guests' webpage for deeper insights. Your engagement is the foundation of our journey, and until next time, keep pursuing wisdom.